mai, haere mai everyone. We're just going to do a karakia to open and let a few more people join us and then we'll get started. Whakataka ho, ki te uru, whakataka ho, ki te tonga, kia mā, kina kina, ki uta, kia mā, tata tata ki tai, ihi aki ana, te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hohu, ti hei, mauri ora. No mai, haere mai, thank you for joining us this Monday lunchtime to get some information about our upcoming CBT study going into the next year. Ko Zara toko ingoa. My name's Zara Mansell. I'm a clinical psychologist and new director to the program this year, and I'll let my wonderful colleague and co-convener introduce herself.
Kia ora tātou, nau mai haere mai, ko te whare wananga o Otago, kei whanganui a tāra, te mahi i naine, ko Emily Cooney toko ingoa. Lovely to have you all here. Gosh, the number of participants is really quite striking, and welcome all of those of you who have just popped in.
Yeah, great to have you all with us. And just a little note that the chat is disabled for this webinar just because of the numbers of people attending, but we'd love to have your questions submitted through the Q&A box. So it's just down at the bottom of your Zoom options, and you should be able to submit any questions through there. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the kind of course information with you all first, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. And so maybe hold off on any of the, I guess, course-specific questions until we've gone through that, because hopefully we'll answer some of those along the way. Anything else you want to add, Emily, before we get stuck in to that? Wonderful. Okay, so Emily and I co-convened the CBT, the Cognitive Behaviour Therapy program here at Otago, based in Wellington, but delivered around the country. And so we'll talk a little bit more about options for study going into 2026 with you all, hopefully some of you joining us next year. So Emily and I briefly introduced ourselves. We're just two people in the program. There's many wonderful people involved in the program, and we just included a few key people here. Emily, did you want to do a little introduction of these wonderful people?
Sure. So Tracy Barnfield and Dr. Susan Watson and Dr. Ali Britton and Dr. Roman Patel are all clinical psychologists. Three of them are based in Wellington, Whanganui a Tāra. Susan Watson is actually up in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland at the moment. And Tracy actually was one of the very early developers of the course with John Bushnell back in the day. She and Susan work at the CBT clinic in Wellington, and previously have worked in psych liaison and a number of other whatuora roles, as well as being lecturers on the certificate CBT course. And Dr. Ali Britton is a senior lecturer within the Department of Indigenous Studies, where I actually think she's leading at the moment at Massey University. And we are extremely fortunate to have her along with Dr. Roman Patel offering our Common Cultural Needs Supervision course, which we can provide more detail about should you choose to join us in 2026. And Roman Patel also works in the inpatient unit. I think I cannot remember the exact name of it in Whanganui a Tāra, but at Whatuora, just around the corner here. And both he and Ali used to work at the Community Alcohol and Drug Service, where he was the lead and Ali was one of the therapists. And recently, Ali has obtained Health Research Council funding to conduct a large-scale study adapting community reinforcement for individuals who are struggling with substance use problems, specifically Waiora Māori. So an adaptation for tangata Waiora Māori who are struggling with addiction issues.
Yeah, and I think all the people here, and Emily and I, we're all practicing clinicians, applying and using CBT and upskilling and learning ourselves, as well as some of us also have a research and academic role, including Ellie and Rongo, as Emily has said. So part of our role, along with the teaching, is kind of updating and keeping our learning and knowledge really fresh, which is then applied, directly in our own practices as well. So there's a real loop for us all, and with the program, and as well as these key people, there's lots and lots of people in our communities across Aotearoa that support this course and that have been long-standing parts of supporting this course, both in kind of developing the teaching content as well as helping to deliver it. So we will have guest lectures from people with particular expertise, also people with lived experience of particular challenges or things will come and teach into the course. So it's quite diverse across the teaching and the certificate, as well as the diploma, the advanced. So lots and lots of people, and also lots of input from clinical supervisors across Te Whatu Ora and other services, and as well as intermarking. And again, these people are all practitioners currently kind of working and practicing CBT as well. So the focus of the course, well, within an academic space here, and bringing kind of the rigor and the standards of that, is very much applied through from our level of organising the course to the supervision, the marking, the teaching of the course.
Yeah, and Zara is not one to blow her own trumpet. And I was just reflecting, we complement each other quite well as senior lecturer and course convener, in the sense that you specialise in working with young people and individuals with PTSD and other anxiety disorders and mood disorders. And currently I'm working primarily with individuals who have sexual assault or abuse, and who are also struggling with intense emotion dysregulation and high-risk behaviours. So, we cover a lot of different specialties, and together, we offer quite a diverse set of clinical examples and applications of the material that we're teaching.
Yeah, great. Okay, so in terms of what we're offering and what is involved in studying with us, so this is from this year. It also applies to 2026 for the certificate level postgraduate course. So this is a fully funded course by the Ministry of Health, by Te Po, so it's a really amazing workforce development opportunity, and we're really well supported by the team at Te Po to do that as well. As we said, it's a really practical and applied focus within the university structure, and the way the teaching is structured is designed to fit in with most of you working in clinical roles, often full-time or at least 0.6, which we'll come to that in a second. So the block teaching, rather than being kind of weekly lectures, is condensed into blocks of 1 week per teaching block, and this happens across the academic year. So it's roughly kind of March, mid-year, and then around August for the final block of teaching. So you can take your learning in those chunks and then go away and apply and come back as you go. The course load for the postgraduate certificate is a full year, half-time academic load. And again, the academic year kind of more goes from March to October for our course and in general, and it is designed specifically for our communities in Aotearoa. So again, we're taking high quality CBT learning and applying it to our local settings. So the content is integrating a lot of different things, including therapy demonstrations, skill practice, lectures, case studies, and also includes service user lived experience perspectives on CBT. The assignments, again, have a strong, more practical and applied focus. So they're primarily based on real life sessions, recordings of your sessions, case histories based on that, and then feedback, again, designed to help you both get through the course, but more importantly, apply your learnings in a practical and high quality way. And as part of that, you need to have supervision in your workplace to help you apply that learning. So we'll talk a little bit more about the specific requirements of those things. But first, we thought we'd share this video, which is also on our website and talks a little bit more about the perspective of students on the course.
I'm a community mental health nurse.
I'm an alcohol and drug clinician.
I'm an occupational therapist. I wanted tools to be able to address some of that stuff that I see didn't get addressed.
Seeing what's actually underneath, finding out the true problem.
Gives them a really clear understanding of what their problem is.
Lots of evidence and research. They're comprehensive, very empirical, but then also it's very practical and applied.
It has sparked a lot of curiosity within the team because they've seen, some of the really good client outcomes that I've had.
Helped us as a team to understand our clients and a bit to formulate their issues and what's going on for them, conceptualize what's going on for the clients.
Understanding clients and what the presenting problems are.
And work out what is possible.
And I'm seeing results from my clients as well, like they're really responding to this stuff.
People are actually finishing treatment and not coming back.
Gives them hope that actually there's a way of changing this.
It's helped me as a person as well as definitely helped my clinical practice.
It's been brilliant as a parent. It's enhanced my parenting skills.
I felt really competent after leaving my block courses to go out and try this stuff and do this stuff with clients.
It's made me want to keep doing this kind of work.
And I've had clients say, if only I had done this 20 years ago.
It has changed my practice.
Do it.
Beautiful scenic shots of Te Whanganui Otago at the end there for you guys, or for those of you that might be looking to come and join us in person for our teaching. And I think, the other thing that the students there talk about, which we haven't really gone into, but happy to answer specific questions on, is there's kind of the CBT specific learning in terms of a really solid evidence-based theory that again, so it gets results and can have a big measurable difference in people's lives, as well as kind of core therapeutic skills that I think a lot of people speak about the benefits of. So teaching around assessment, formulation, kind of those more broad therapy skills along with the CBT specific skills. So Emily might want to add something to that, and then I think you're going to talk a little bit more about the criteria to enrol with us.
For sure. Thanks so much for describing this. We should also mention next year what we're anticipating we will offer is block teaching either in Wellington at the start. So first block will always be in Wellington, and then subsequently there's the opportunity to attend in person in Wellington or online for the subsequent blocks 2 and 3, block weeks 2 and 3 of 2026. And that has essentially been our conclusion, crowdsourced from previous students. They've been clear that those are the two options that make the most sense for them and that they want. So in order to be eligible for applying for this course, you need to be a registered health professional with a minimum of 2 years clinical experience. Now, this criterion, we have accepted individuals who are youth workers or AOD workers who have not historically been registered as health professionals. So this one, essentially, if you want to apply and you're thinking, oh, do I meet these criteria? Feel free to apply anyway, and we will check with DePo, the organisation that has the final word in terms of eligibility, and assess whether or not your experience or your registration status means that you might still be eligible to apply even if you don't fully meet those criteria. You have to be employed by a government-funded mental health service, so a Ministry of Health funded mental health service, and it could be an NGO, or it could be whatuora, or it could be some other, like a primary health organisation where you're working in a mental health capacity, but it has to be funded by the Ministry of Health. It can't be Ministry of Education or Oranga Tamariki.
Or Justice.
Yeah, unless you have specific Ministry of Health funding for your role within that organisation. You have to be working 3 days a week or equivalent in that mental health role. And this next one is pretty cut and dried. So we've tried to look about whether there's any wiggle room for applicants. Like in general, you can expect us to advocate for you if you choose to apply for us. So we will ask our funders whether, there could be exceptions to particular rules. This next one, the requirement that you're either a citizen or a permanent resident. You hold a permanent residency visa, not just a visa, not just a residential visa, but a permanent residency in New Zealand is a requirement for this course. You have to be able to do CBT with clients, because this is a practical and applied course. And so as a result, you need to be able to do CBT because you're going to be turning in assignments that are practically oriented, where you're doing case write-ups and also session examples of what you're doing. So you have to be able to practice this stuff. You come to your block weeks, you learn the stuff, and then you go home to your area and you apply what you've learned. And you need a supervisor, a clinical psychologist with expertise in CBT to supervise you. And if you need help sourcing a supervisor in your area, then we can give you information about people who've previously provided supervision within your Rohe, or if you want to have supervision online, across the country, people who are experienced with this course and have helped other students, put this content into practice. And of course, you need to have support from your work. So your manager will need to sign a form confirming their support and their commitment to doing the things that are necessary in order to support you to attend the course and apply what you're learning. So what does it involve? Well, it's a 60-point paper, so it's basically a half-time course. It's designed for you to be learning on the go. So often people are working full-time and doing this course and managing that. It's comprised of, as Sarah said, 3 block weeks. The first block week is about foundational skills and CBT structure and conceptualizing CBT, and also CBT specifically for mood problems, especially depression. And block 2 really focuses in on how do you apply the stuff to tangata whai ora Māori, and how do you think in terms of what are the implications of this for Aotearoa in terms of applying CBT within our communities. And then we're also focusing hard out on anxiety disorders. So we look at CBT for panic disorder with and without agoraphobia. We also look at CBT for social anxiety, which is so prevalent without us really knowing it, because people with social anxiety tend to try and cover up. But honestly, it's a game changer once people get CBT for that particular thing, because it's such an alienating experience to be both lonely and terrified of being judged. And then CBT for generalized anxiety disorder. So that's block 2. And then block 3, we look at recovery-oriented CBT for psychosis and CBT for substance use disorders. So addictive behaviour in the context of substance use disorders. And the assignments involve a combination of write-up of assessment and treatment plan through a CBT framework. And you submit a recording of your session doing CBT with the client, and then you get reviewed according to like the gold standard CBT adherence criteria. So you know if you've passed our course, that you meet the criteria that are associated with the Institute of CBT. So it's a kind of qualification that is very credible, both within Aotearoa, which is the reason you're being taught, and also credible overseas. And for individuals who there's basically additional supervision available for common cultural needs. So for individuals who identify as an ethnic minority, for whom often CBT there's additional work required to kind of think about how you take this modality, which is originally developed, it's a Western model developed primarily for Western educated, industrialized democracies, and often the way it translates, thinking about how do I translate this to my own people and my own way of being, and how do I become a CBT therapist in my own right in a way that translates the values that I hold within my community to my CBT, is often an extra step for individuals for whom that stuff isn't second nature. And so we offer additional supervision for those kinds of challenges. And that's provided by this year by Ronga Patel and Ellie Britton, and we have every expectation that that will be the case in 2026 as well.
I think we haven't mentioned yet either that there's also some regular tutorials through the year. So as outside of the block teaching weeks, there is also regular opportunities to touch base with us, kind of, troubleshoot things, go over extra teaching points, assignment related questions. So that they also happen at regular intervals through the teaching year.
Yeah,
usually online.
Once a month. Online,
Yeah.
once a month, and you can talk about your cases there as well. And the expectation is that you're also talking with your supervisor about this stuff as you go.
We're inviting applications now. So applications are open for 2026 for eligible health professionals. If you would like to make an application, so there's the formal processes through the university, you are able to start the university level enrolment process. I believe you can't add on your specific paper till a little bit later in the year. However, you're welcome to start that process. And if you are interested or would like to start the application process, we'd also love to hear from you directly. So if you do start that process anywhere, just feel free to get in touch with us at the email below, so cbt.uow@otago.ac.nz. And as Emily and I've already mentioned, we're also here to kind of support and advocate for you as needed through the admissions process, given that there is a few different parts of the eligibility, and there's also a couple of levels to the enrolment. So enrolling with the university and then enrolling with our course specifically. But also we haven't mentioned specifically because we're actually transitioning the role at the moment, but we also have really good admin support attached to our program who will be kind of your first point of contact and able to support you not just with the enrolment process, but also through the course year in terms of managing assignments and things that come up along the way. And they're here Monday to Friday, office hours as well. So there's always someone available to support you from our specific CBT team, as well as the wider university supports. Anything else you want to add about that or prospective enrolments?
No.
Get in touch.
Yeah, get in touch. Like basically any door is the right door for us. So just reach out to us. And thank you so much also for your cogent questions. So we've got a few questions.
And it should say we hope to see you in 2026. If you're really eager beavers, you don't need to come this year, but we'd love to see you next year.
Yeah. So a couple of questions have come through the Q&A. Is this course only for domestic students or also for international students? So we'll type out answers as well, but we'll actually we do this often in our teaching. Zara, what are your thoughts? I think it's rude not to answer people's questions
let's
now.
answer them live.
And we'll put them, we'll also respond to them as well.
Yeah.
So is this course only for domestic students or also for international students? Great question. So the course is available for citizens and permanent residents in New Zealand. So if you would define yourself as an international student who is also a permanent resident in New Zealand, you are warmly welcome. If you are someone who is residing in New Zealand but doesn't yet have permanent residency status, we invite you to get permanent residency status and apply. We would love to have people on board, and the funding criteria require that people need to be permanent residents in New Zealand. The fees are solely funded by Te Pou, by the Ministry of Health, and as such, they are wanting to fund people to learn CBT so that the benefits can be experienced by people who are in New Zealand. Would you consider a social work supervisor for a government agency? We certainly would, and our funding streams may not, but we encourage people to just simply put their case forward. And if you discover that you're actually funded by the Ministry of Health, your position, then it could well be that you're eligible for the course. I'm aware of the need for the course to be done in conjunction with ongoing related work. In the future, is there a consideration to offer a foundational course for those starting in mental health practice and wanting to gain qualification in order to increase the chances of getting employed? Gosh, isn't that interesting? So let me think about this. get in touch with us is the short answer, and we can confer with you about potential options if you're wanting to learn CBT on the go while you're starting in mental health practice. I have a bajillion thoughts about that. I'm not aware of where things are right now, but we can certainly advocate with Te in terms of thinking about how this course should look and eligibility for the course going forward in the future. So we'd love to hear from you in terms of your thoughts about this.
Sorry, Emily, I might have missed it because I was also just typing at the same time, but the question around the social worker, I think that was specific about social work supervisor.
Supervisor, yeah.
But you covered that.
I did.
I might have missed that.
So the government
Great, just
agency,
checking.
if it happens to be a health agency, you're golden. Absolutely, get in touch. If it is a non-health agency, like for example, Oranga Tamariki or the Ministry of Justice, then on the face of it, people would not be eligible. But when you look closer, sometimes it turns out, or Ministry of Education, but when you look closer, often it turns out that people are actually being funded by the Ministry of Health within those rules. So for example, the Ministry of Justice mental health nurse who's like stepping into court to provide brief assessments and recommendations for court is being funded by the Ministry of Health. So that one varies on the face of it.
Check.
Check.
And in terms of supervisor requirements, so typically it's a clinical psychologist supervisor required. However, again, there can be exemptions to this where someone's done equivalent training or has equivalent training and experience. So again, it's kind of a get in touch to check eligibility if you're thinking about it in that lens.
And then we've got, well, it's also have to go through Te particularly with regards to if you've completed your NESP program. Well, this course go towards the completion of a postgrad diploma. Why, yes, you have the option. So currently this year, we're actually offering a certificate in CBT, and completion of that makes you eligible to complete a diploma in CBT, which is an advanced CBT course, which assumes that you've got foundational training in CBT. So next year, we're just offering the certificate, but in 2027, we are likely to be offering the diploma. So yes, it counts towards that. Do Te also fund accommodation and transport for the first block course in Wellington? So you have the option to apply.
Great question.
Yeah, for Skills Matters, I believe it's called a Skills Matters travel grant. We'll pop the link in the chat. But essentially, you can apply for funding for accommodation and travel for that first week. And feedback we've had so far from students is that depending on where you're traveling from, that amount of money is realistic for covering a week. It is not realistic for covering 3 weeks, hence our decision to, in order to enhance access to the course, to shift to offering blocks 2 and 3 online for students who live out of Wellington.
Just replace the next one. Just get in touch with us if you started an application last year or previous year, and unsure where to pick up from there or what we've still got. Just get in touch with us and we can help you out. So I'll put that in the reply as well for you all.
The first course of so there are 3 block weeks, block teaching weeks. So you have the option of travelling to Wellington for all 3 block weeks. And if people who reside in Wellington or within the Wellington region, that's the option that they take. For people who live outside of Wellington, what's offered is the expectation is you attend your first block in person so that you can connect with your fellow students and the course, like the course lecturers. And then the subsequent block weeks 2 and 3, you would attend online. And the block weeks, depending on where Matariki falls in a particular year, block 1 is always in March, block 2 is in either late May, early June, and block 3 is in August. I hope that makes sense in terms of like there are 5-day block teaching weeks and there are 3 of them across the year.
counsellor working in, I think there's NGO, I assume agency in Auckland for 4 years. I think this comes back to the funding. It needs to be a Ministry of Health funded role. So it depends where the funding for the NGO comes from. Yeah, again, if you're not sure, there's something to probably maybe check out within your service first, and then you can come to us if you're not sure.
So if they hold a contract with the Ministry of Health, you're golden. Or in general, you are probably golden in terms of your eligibility. If they don't receive funding from the Ministry of Health, then it's going to be harder to convince our funders of your eligibility for the course.
Supervision question. Inpatient mental health unit, yeah, trouble with getting a supervisor. This can be a tough one at the moment. Again, it's a bit case by case, so there needs to be equivalent kind of training and experience for that person. So like if they've done, say, equivalent to our CBT diploma training and gone on to practice and have experience, then potentially we can consider that equivalent, but it does need to be reasonably high level training. And that's just really about making sure that you get the support you need to get the level required for the course, and also again to actually apply it and practice well. Yeah.
Work part-time as a social worker in Te Whatuora. I guess, yeah, well, if you were able to increase your hours to 0.6 across the academic year, you would be eligible, just saying. So something to think about. And yeah, no, Te Pau have been pretty staunch about needs to be 0.6 or more. So the course fees are funded by Te Pau. So you don't need to, if you are accepted to this course, you don't need to pay any course fees. Those are funded. Do attendees pay for their own clinical supervision? So one of the things that your manager is asked to do is to confirm their commitment to providing you with the necessary supervision. So historically, the expectation is that that your work is paying for supervision, as is the case for most workplaces. Like in general, if you're employed as a mental health worker within a government-funded registered health professional capacity, your supervision is funded by the service that you're working within. Sometimes there have been agreements that have been developed with the student and their organisation to collaborate together in terms of funding clinical supervision. But the bottom line is that you need a minimum of 15 hours of clinical supervision, like CBT-oriented supervision across the academic year. And the academic year, the course begins in early March. We haven't finalised the exact course start dates for 2026. But the course begins in March 2026 and ends, the final exam is the last Thursday in October 2026. How many seats for this course? Well, we can welcome up to 60 odd people. I hope that so yeah, there are up to 60 places in this course. The deadline for applications is end of October 2026. Basically, we have a first in, first served kind of approach to this. So if we reserve the right to, if we've accepted people by the end of October, then applications will be closed earlier. If there are still places available, then we may keep the application date open. So great question about study leave. So what happens is the course offers a stipend or a contribution to employers to contribute to the costs of the person's time attending the course. So a contribution is made, I think it's about $2,000. Might be $1,500. I have to double check the details of that. And often what happens is that's used by employers to cover the costs of supervision for a CBT supervisor, bearing in mind that that funding to contribute to the costs of cover for someone is only paid after you complete the course. So in late October / November of the year that you're completing the course. Yeah, so it's so interesting. It's true. And youth inpatient or an intellectual disability and forensic services capacity to provide informed consent to engage in treatment for the suspicion. So that has been navigated. So I should read that out properly. Sorry, because like you guys can't see it. So with regards to working with clients for the course, are there restrictions on client population that you can use? Just thinking ethically, if working with youth inpatient or an intellectual, I'm assuming ID means intellectual disability and forensic services, capacity to provide informed consent to engage in treatment for this, especially with video sessions, etc., may not be suitable for completing this study. Thinking if there's the Mental Health Act or custody or bail, etc. Also, do whai ora have to be a certain age, and does consent from whai ora have to be sought from caregivers / legal guardians? Great question. So, zooming out for the first parts, we have had tauira from students who have worked within prison settings, within forensic inpatient units, and within a whole range, and also within child and adolescent mental health services, and also regional youth forensic services. And each place has their specific requirements for orienting clients to the idea of recording sessions and using them for this purposes, and specific consent forms for that. And those vary from place to place, and they adhere to the ethical guidelines regarding making sure that someone understands exactly what they're agreeing to, and providing consent and ensuring that they've got capacity to consent.
Yeah.
And if the person is under 16 years, then in general in Aotearoa, the general rule of thumb is that that person, there has to be additional consent required, obtained from their guardian or caregiver or parent for things like this. That said, really what's necessary is to think within your organisation, what are the requirements? And usually there is a precedent for this, because there have been clinical psychology interns or medical interns, med students, who have had to record things, and there's a process within that setting for consent to be obtained, and thinking carefully about the criteria you need to use to determine whether or not someone has the capacity to consent, or whether the context actually means that they can't, because there's so much power differential within that situation that any consent obtained could be seen as coercive anyway. So it depends, and what it most depends on is the requirements within your setting. It would be problematic for us to provide requirements about that, because they actually might not meet the criteria that is necessary within your specialist setting.
Yeah, I think a helpful way in general for the course is to think about what practically will be useful and work within your setting, how might CBT be useful, how might that work within your particular client group, and then we can kind of think about wrapping the course stuff around that. But if the answer is kind of no at that level, then it's probably going to be that's sort of the more important consideration first of all. We can then flexibly think about a lot of the other parts and talk that through with you. But yeah, it needs to be following all the usual processes of around ethical considerations and what's appropriate, and consent processes.
So I'm just popping the link in the chat to the person who asked about funding and accommodation and transport to information from Te Pou about travel and accommodation assistance.
Great, and I'm just linking the information to CBT, and also that you can also just email us if you're not sure, or if that's an easier way in.
And so someone said, I work full time, will I have to attend in person those 3 block weeks, or online for some blocks can be an option? So short answer is block 1, you absolutely have to attend in person. And block 2 and block 3, if you are in an online stream of the course, you can attend those, the second and third block weeks online. And attendance, like full attendance at that, is not pick and mix. You know, if you have to attend the full time for those block weeks. Like you can't just sort of do some and then not others and sort of, pick and mix. That doesn't work. It's sort of like you're learning how to do cardiac surgery. You need to attend the whole course and practice it in order to, be doing the best possible intervention for your tangata whaiora. Oh yeah. I have experience as a support worker in disability care and currently working as a learning assistant at Disabled School. Can I get my practical hours from here? Short answer is it depends. First step is to determine whether or not you're eligible. So making sure that you have Ministry of Health funding for your role, and then from there, provided you can do CBT within that context, and you and your supervisor agree that this is a solid context in which to apply your skills, then we would be guided by you and your supervisor about that, provided you're eligible for the course, to attend the course within that setting. And patient unit, so lots of people have actually, lots of students have completed the course while working in an adult inpatient unit. The critical thing is making sure that you've got access to clients, who you can do CBT with in an ongoing kind of way, because the expectation is that you're going to do at least a minimum of 4 intervention hours with a minimum of 6 clients across the academic year, which sounds like quite a low bar for practicum hours, and logistically it's quite a tricky thing to have happen if you're working in an inpatient unit, because often the turnover is so rapid and unpredictable. People are sort of, in some contexts, people are just there for 3 days or a week and then they're gone. So getting your intervention hours in is often dependent on being able to follow people up in the community and have an agreement that you're able to do some time-limited CBT work, which is usually done in working with people once every week or fortnight across a number of weeks. So having some kind of setup where you can do a little bit of that is useful. I hope that answers your question. Wow, so yeah.
I think, no, I was just going to say, great. I think you guys have covered hopefully the main big things, I think, in what you've asked in terms of eligibility criteria, supervisors, different settings, enrollment, where to enroll, where to contact us. Again, I've hopefully put it in wherever someone's asked, so just have a scroll through, but you should find in a couple of places both the link to the general kind of university apply now admissions, and you can also just email us. You should find the email cbt.uow@otago.ac.nz through there in a few different places. And I think if you, for whatever reason, are panicking or lose all of that info or haven't got it, I think we will also have your details from this webinar if you've signed up, and we can send out some general comms through that as well. So if you found us and managed to get on today, have full confidence you'll be able to find that and what you need, and again, whatever's easy for you from here, or if you need to follow up or check specific things, just get in touch. We're a friendly team and we're here to help, so don't hesitate to reach out. It'll be great to hear from you.
Cool.
Anything else?
I think that's
check
it.
any last questions? No, looks like that is us.
All right, should we
All right.
close?
Yeah, I will close us off for today. Thank you all so much for joining us.
And your lunchtime.
Yeah, I
Thanks
really
a lot.
appreciate it. And yeah, it's such a privilege and to do this, to be able to offer this course, have all the support that we do behind us, from funding from Te Po and all the people that teach into it, all our current students and previous students. it's a really wonderful community to be part of, and so we look forward to hopefully welcoming some of you on board next year. Kia ora.
Kia
I'm
ora.
going to close us off for today. Unahia, unahia, unahia ki te uru tapunui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, e te ara, te kata, koiara e rongo, whakairia, ake ki ronga, kia tina, uie, tai ki. Kia ora, ka kite, and hopefully mo te wā. See you soon.
Kia pai tora.